Morning, folks. It's Brian with another recap of my RQG Runequest Roleplaying and Glorantha game we got to play last night. And I got stuffy, sorry. And I'm up early this morning because I got a game hole con to run this morning. And I was watching the BYU game last night, so I have no idea what time I went to bed. Anyway, my campaign, this is campaign 2, and it's Stranger Strange Land. We're on session 4, which is also session 4 of chapter 1 to the whole campaign thing, right? So anyway, spoilers. We are running, or I am running, the Rattling Wind from the Pegasus Plateau. Oop. Yeah, somewhere somewhere. Yep. Anyway, I may be a little loopy because I'm not sleeping much. Anyway, when we left the party last time, Engrelar, the Ngisi worshiper, had dived down to the chariot and got snagged by the skeleton. I was going to the beginning of the session jump back to the party with the town to give them some time up front before going back to, put some more suspense in. But one of the players who's playing one of the characters back in town was delayed in getting to our game. Some of his job stuff. Anyway, so we continue with the Ngisi thing, and we realized in talking with the player that because he's asking questions about in the beginning of the RQG book, the beginning cult piece where you're creating your character. There's some what was it? This is from the back in the full cult description. And there's a little note about the Naiad and the summon cult spirit summons Naiad, and he was getting a little confused. So we were talking through that. We noticed that it's a 2-point rune spell, and the breathe air water spell is also a 2-point rune spell. So he's burned 2 of his 3 rune points. He doesn't have enough for his breathe water, and we were all kind of counting on him being able to breathe water here because he's being held down by the skeleton with this whole package thing. And so he at first tries to put his feet on the cart, push himself away, break off the skeleton's grip kind of thing, which is normally a strength versus strength deal, right? So we didn't think that would be too much an issue, but the whole thing is one thing. And it's got pretty hefty strength because of that. And so he is unsuccessful in that. So he summons a water elemental to help him. Water elemental's only got a d6 plus 6 strength, but he did roll a 5. That's an extra 11 strength to his 11. So that's 22 against the critter's 30? Yeah, the critter's 30 strength. So he does it again, and nothing happens. And actually starts drowning at this point. He misses con roll. So he takes damage to his chest. See him by 6 points. And the skeleton squeezed. And he's not wearing any armor. He's out swimming. So that's an extra 2d4 damage he took to his arm, which put it below 0. So he loses the use of his arm, and now he's drowning. And the cart at this point is doing the fury thing, so it's starting to take off. So he notices that, but he takes more damage to his chest, which puts him under. So he's unconscious, underwater, being dragged by this thing. And the drowning rules and the reaction to injury rules don't really mesh too well, right? And we're trying to figure, because at this point the player thinks, I'm dead. I've taken a bunch of damage and below in my chest, so I'm unconscious, and he's drowning, and he's, not gonna be able to survive this thing. And so I start figuring, okay, how fast is he really swimming? And we made it a 10-minute swim, but that's actually a long time. But how far do you how what's the distance that you swim in a melee round? It's not in the swim section of the skill set, so I have no idea. So I'm just kind of guessing. Oh, 12 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5. He probably swam a lot farther than I was thinking last night. Because I was thinking his movement was 8, probably 1 is what I was thinking. That's now that I think about it, cannot be correct. But anyway, this thing's underwater. It's going to run. It's moving at 10 normal, so that's 20 that it's moving at. Actually, no, because 3 meters disengaged. So that's 30 meters. But he would have been moving like at 12. But 12 for 50 rounds. So I did a round comparison. He's out so many rounds. It's moving that many rounds back. At that point, I was thinking moving at Hespe because the water's in resistance. At like 10 times. So it took him 50 melee rounds to get out there. It would take it 5 melee rounds to get back. So we do a picture switch to Lars. Lars is out there looking at the water, and Geesy's been down for too long, and there's some swirling in the water there, and then there's a wave moving forward. So ripple at first, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually this thing comes up out of the water, rolling. Because I pictured the lake, doing a gentle roll out, not a drop off. Although after 2020 hindsight, I probably should have made it a drop off, because the scenario describes the chariot as being 4 meters under the water, 12 feet, right? So, but how far out in the lake is that? And then I get to the end when we're actually talking the stuff through, and I realize, yeah, these guys just kind of pushed it out there at the same time to the stuff. So maybe it wasn't quite so far out into the lake. Maybe the lake is a little deeper up front than initially I had surmised. Read the scenario just succinctly, deeply read the scenario before you play. Anyway, so it comes up. The skeleton slings Ingrillar out there, and the cart runs over him and takes off towards the village. Now, in the Fury piece, it talks about running over to the duck piece, but why? I mean, it knows where it wants to go, so I just had to run to the village. As soon as Lars sees this web coming forward, and look at the tracks, okay, I'm getting off to the side. I don't want to be in front of this thing. And he talks to the duck. What's his name? Darvin. Talks to him, hey, Darvin, we need to get out of the way. But as soon as the cart comes up out of the water, Darvin sees it. I make his fear undead roll, and he misses it. So he takes off back to his village. Lars going, oh, great. And the thing comes out, runs over him, and takes off. And okay, Lars, here's Ingrillar, unconscious, just got run over by this thing. What are you gonna do? And he's thinking more. I believe the player is thinking more of, okay, we need to pump his lungs, get the water out, kind of thing. So he's thinking first aid stuff. Well, first aid generally takes time. 5 melee rounds per application, kind of thing, and you can do each. So he's been run over by the leg, run over and crushed on the arm, and he's got drowning in the chest. So we could do first aid 3 times. There is a paragraph earlier on the other page talks about it takes 1 melee round to keep someone from dying or bleeding out. And so essentially that's, what was the word they used? Well, anyway, that's what he wants to do, keep him from dying. Okay, so we do that. Okay, he's not going to die anymore. Now, in my house rule for dying is when you get to 0 hit points, you've got your healing rate in melee rounds before you actually die. It's kind of like this spirit hanging around kind of thing. So, plus he's drowning. People get pulled back from drowning all the freaking time. So, how does this all work out? And I'm just kind of playing it by my ear kind of thing, going, okay, what are you gonna do? So he does the first first aid to keep him from dying. Okay. Now the guy just got he's like a negative 13 hit points now. His arm has taken the 8 that it can take because it's only got 4 hit points. It would have taken much more when it got run over by the cart, but you know it only takes so much. And I didn't pass the rest on to regular hit points because he's on the ground and just ran over it. And so he finally gets around to I've got cure wounds spell. So he gets the power storage crystal from Engrillar's stuff. Does cure wounds on him, sucked all 8 of that, and another 12, I think it was. No, 13 from himself, which would bring Engrillar up to full. And it brings him down like 2 or 3 magic points. So Lars coughs up water. He's throat's burning and that kind of thing, but he's alive. He's at full hit points. And so at that point, Engrillar gets all of his stuff on, takes a few melee rounds. There's a video of a guy donning Greek armor, you know, the vambraces, no, the greaves and the linthorax and his helmet and his shield and grabbing his spear. And it's like 2 minutes total kind of thing. You can get that stuff on pretty quick. So I figure a couple melee rounds there doing that, and then they're heading off. Okay, are you guys gonna do a run walk kind of thing, or do you just want to try to sprint out? This thing is way ahead of them. So it's kind of ballpark 12, a speed of 12, things moving at 20. It gets to the village. Okay, so we transition to the village, and I have all the players make some rolls on orate to get the villagers to do what they need to do. A battle for setting up their defenses and stuff, and a device to set up traps and things. The way the scenario is written out is like these are examples of things that players can do, and so orate's in there a couple times and that kind of thing. But I didn't bother with that. Just everybody gets to make these rolls. You get a basic idea of what the villagers are doing. I have them make some scan rolls to see if they notice certain things. The guy with the limp, they're going to be able to notice off the bat. That's not a problem there. But make some rolls to notice that the innkeeper is deaf in one ear, and that the red smith specifically keeps the left side of her face covered with her hair. And I didn't have them make the orate roll or the evaluate rolls at that time, but I had another scan roll to see if they noticed the coppice in the smith shop, and another one to see if they noticed the fine horses in the stables. Things that give clues that there's something else going on here. And so they set their defense. Essentially, they set a barricade on the bridge on the village side. Arestra and Bossanor, I keep forgetting his name. Sander are behind the barricade with some of the villagers. They have a couple of villagers as scouts north, a couple of villagers scout west, and a couple of villagers scout south. And Subutai climbs up on top of one of the buildings on the south, and is watching south with his bow. So they're all set up in their defenses. The rattling wind comes rolling down the thing, but it does not want to engage more than, I think, like three or more folks. That's too many. Excuse me. They want solo stuff. Something, run over somebody and kill them. Run over and kill them. So it gets there and it stops because there's a barricade. There's lots of people there. I can't do that. So I just have to spin around in circles as angry, trying to figure out what to do. And then I'm just going to mow down a building. So it tears off, rips through the stream. I would call it a creek. maybe even a canal, but it wasn't man-made. Not very big, but there's a water source there that you got the bridge over, right? So it goes through that and mows right through this little house, a little hut there. That did his damage for his day, and so he's going to go back home. And eventually circles goes north through the village, and then crosses the creek again, and then heads back to the thing, right? So Lars and Engrelar, Lars specifically says, "We're keeping the trail in sight, but we are off the trail." As they're coming back to the village, because this is going to be go back to kind of figure. So Subutai up on top of the building has other buildings in the way of the village that gets trampled, so he doesn't really see what's going on. He'll hear the splashing and stuff, so he'll turn to look, and he may be able to see it in the water. Well, it's nighttime now; it's dark. But after it blows through the building, he'll be able to get a couple shots at it as it's circling around. So he's really antsy, make a shot. Well, these other buildings are in the way; you can't see anything. And then I had a poor time describing. For some reason, I was doing the it's a Discord thing, right? And I've got the channel, and I've got a picture of my combat map board, but we're not really using it. We didn't use it this time at all. But then I do the live screen capture thing of the picture of the map, and so it should show my mouse, but it wasn't. So I couldn't really point things out, and I had a difficult time fully describing what was going on because the river goes like this, and the house is over here. So the chariot does this kind of sweeping motion and is 15, 20, 30 feet away from the bridge. At one point it's about 10 feet away when just before it bursts into the building, right? And so Arestra's thinking 10 feet away from the bridge, I'll just jump on it. Well, it's over here just before it goes in the building. If you want to run over and jump onto it, I can kind of see that happening. Excuse me, more crud going on. Lars steps in and helps describe it better, which turns the light bulb on for Russia. Oh, okay. So Russia runs over towards the building and then tries to jump on it before it goes into the building and that kind of thing. Okay, good to go. We're all good. Make your jump roll, -20. Talks about that, -10 or -20, depending upon vantage points and stuff. And it's talking about jumping onto it from a platform, opposite buildings, that kind of thing. And she's on the ground. It's coming up out of the creek. So, okay, give her, but -20. She missed it by that -20. If she didn't have that modifier, she would have jumped onto the chariot. So she lands in the water. Chariot bursts through. Subutai gets shot out. It hits one of the panels. Ping! Doesn't do any damage. Gets his second shot out, and it was a special. I got an impale. And we've implemented the corrected impale rules, which is the old RQ2 rules, which is max damage plus roll damage. It's on an errata somewhere, thank goodness, because I would have done it myself anyway. And so he got an impale, hit one of the wheels, thud, and brought that wheel from 12 hit points to 4. Yeah, I think that's what it was. So I made some ethereal scream kind of thing as it's peeling away. And then it heads back to the lake. 15, 20 minutes later, Lars and Engrelar show up. The villagers are pretty much scattered at this point. Lysander and Arestra are hanging out at the barricade waiting for them. They show up, they start talking about stuff, and then they move to the inn, get something to eat, and they talk about this stuff. They talk with the innkeeper. There was a couple of things. At this point, I had people make some, what's the word? Evaluate rolls about the building itself. And there was some comments earlier in the game about the lake being all dark and murky and not even good for fishing, when that is not, in fact, the truth, because they were sitting there and saw how clear the water was. And so they know the villagers are holding something back. Arrest tries to intimidate the innkeeper about his building now. He paid for it. He got inheritance from his father. That's what he said. And she doesn't believe him. She made her insight roll, so she tries to intimidate and fails that. So he kind of spits back at her. But then Lars goes over, follows him up, moves the wall. We know this. We know that. You're not telling the truth. What's going on? And there's a paragraph in the scenario that talks about after certain things happen, the NPCs kind of collapse and spill their guts. I did forget to mention that when the chariot did appear, Lysander heard somebody in the crowd behind him saying, "It's the Roland's chariot. It's back." You know, that kind of thing. So they know something else is going on. He shares that with them. Somebody did notice the copus, and there's a mention about there's this iron copus out there that the Redsmith has. And how much is an iron copus going to cost? Well, you know, several hundred lunars for an iron copus. And she says that she bought it from a traveling peddler a few years ago. And you know, this inn was built a few years ago, and it would have cost, you know, what this village makes in a year. You know, the whole village makes in a year, kind of thing. And so they know something's going on. And then name the innkeeper Jorgrin. Jorgrin tells a story, and largest player starts laughing about the village revenge stuff, but does Lars himself wouldn't do that. So they say, okay, get everybody in the village in the morning. Get everybody in the village, bring them over. We're gonna have a talk. So they finish eating. They go to sleep, and next morning they get up, they eat, and Jorgrin gets the whole village together, and Engrilar, you know, the noble, the spokesman, the gang, Ore gets out and says, "Okay, we know this, that, and the other. What are you not telling us?" And at that, the Red Smith, Viborna, walks up out of the crowd and throws the copus down their feet and says, "There's got a little spiel here about you know, this cursed sword. We shouldn't have been so greedy," kind of thing. And eventually they work out that the inn was paid with cash from the Wind Lord, the Rune Lord. There's the copus, and they find out about the horses. You know, this is all stuff that came from the Rune Lord. But I still can't figure out why now. What happened 5 weeks ago to cause this thing to happen? Because the guy was killed 7 years ago. You know, his corpse has been rotting in the lake for 7 years. Why now? Why now? They just don't know. And they keep saying, the players keep saying, what happened 6 weeks ago? Except the ducks. And the NPCs are going, what happened recently is the ducks moving in. So they decide, okay, let's go see the ducks. And Viborna goes to go with them as an emissary from the village, which ties into a piece about the way the scenario is written. The next day, they go to the village, although they would do this the first day. So she goes with him, and you know, she gets there. They're walking by the lake. Going, water is so clear. It used to be all covered with lily pads, all murky and nasty. And Lars goes, "You haven't been to the lake in 7 years?" "No, we don't come to the lake. We got our village." So they get to the duck village. The ducks come back. Blackwing. What's his name again? Darvin and his crew come out again. They interact a little bit, and they start asking about, you know, when did you guys start cleaning the lake? It took us a couple of weeks after we got here to clean it all off, and that's when I started thinking, okay, cleaning off the lake is what got this thing going. But they have not yet clued in that after the lake was cleared, the full moon came up, and then the attack started. But they're getting pieces together. But Lars thinks that the cart itself is not the actual burial stuff. That is just that it is in fact an apparition. It may have a physical form, but it's an apparition, we need to find the actual dead bodies so they can burn them, send them on their way, kind of thing. That's what they're thinking. So Lars is thinking that when they cleaned off the lake, they somehow disturbed the funeral area. And there's this pile of all the leaves been rotting for the past 5-6 weeks in the back, turn into mulch. So largely, let's dig through there so we can't find some residue of the cart, splinters of wood, pieces of bronze, that kind of thing, to see if when they cleaned the lake off that they had disturbed things. If he does search through there, doesn't find anything. So he thinks that the burial place is somewhere between the edge of the lake where the cart goes in and out and where Englar found the lake. So they asked the ducks to help them. So the three scout ducks come in there. They're swimming around. Go about halfway, and then start circling around, looking for some kind of burial thing in the water. And they do that. They don't find anything. Eventually, their circle gets big enough that it hits the embankment and goes, okay, go out a little further. And so start doing a little zigzag going out. But don't go as far as where Englar was, right? But as soon as they get close to that, the ducks can see, they can see the cart. Saying, yeah, there's nothing here except the cart is right there. It's over there. It's over there. And that's where we ended the session, I believe. I can't think of anything else that was going on. Oh no, I've had a pretty good session. Not really much combat. The thing itself is hard to kill, and there is a little rule in there about breaking the chains. If you break the chains, that's one of the ways to dispel the spirit possessing the thing. And it's like you make a strength roll versus its hit points of 12. Oh, really? So if you got 12 strength, you have a 50% chance of breaking these chains. I don't think so. So I changed it to your damage bonus. And then trying to treat it like spirit magic. You got to pull on it a few times. Every time you're successful, you do your damage bonus to its strength until its strength goes to 0. And at that point, you've broken the chain. But then start thinking, well, if we're doing a spirit combat kind of deal with it, then what happens when it wins? Does it just kind of wear you out? I think, yeah, it'll wear you out. Your strength goes down. And once your strength goes to 0, you're going, there's no way I'm going to break this thing. So that's what I'm thinking in my head. Fun little scenario. Certainly has the players, twisting their brains trying to figure out what's going on. But we are hitting 28 minutes. Not a long one. Sorry, guys. Happy gaming.